right, welcome to the Cardano Sense Daily DC Fund show, where we analyze at least 3 proposals a week in the fight for funding. The DC Fund is Cardano's 6-week project. Every 6 weeks, someone's going to get some money, or a bunch of people are going to get money for their projects on the Cardano blockchain. So my name's Anthony, and this is your first time here. Please like and subscribe. I'm just starting this show. We don't have that big of an audience, but trying to build it up. It's good for Cardano, good for the community. And once I build the audience up a bit, I'm going to go live. I'd like to do these shows live Monday through Friday, but I want to build up a bit of an audience so that when I go live, we have some people to talk back and forth with. All right, so this show is sponsored by my website here, thecardanofund.com. I built this site as a place where you can go to look at the proposals without having to log in and create an account. The original site, ideascale.com, where proposals start, you have to make an account, and it's kind of tricky to maneuver the site unless you're used to it. But what I do is I put all the proposals here, and I also have a link to the original proposal on ideascale.com. So if you see something here and you want to go to Ideascale and look at it, you just click on the link. I update this at least once a week, but during voting period, I keep it completely updated. So I update this before voting starts. So if you're looking at this, it's the same information as in Ideascale. We're also sponsored today by, the Sophie stake pool. This is my stake pool. We've been in operation since the first epoch where you can create blocks. I actually pulled up another website here I want to show you real quick. So this is adapools.com. So you can see we're doing pretty well. We have 102% lifetime luck. Last month we just had the Cardano Foundation give us 13 million, delegate 13 million to us. They do that for a month period, then goes to somebody else. So we made a lot of, you can see we made 87 blocks. The majority of those blocks was made during that period. We are now currently back down to a small stake pool. We have about a little over 500,000 live stake. But one cool thing that I just found out today is we are actually making 2 blocks. This epoch, which is unbelievable because we're estimated to make 0.38 blocks at this size. 2 blocks is crazy. It's a lot for this size stake pool. So whoever's staking with me now is going to get a pretty big chunk of ADA. It's a good amount. Okay, so let's get now to the state of the fund, as I call it. In this fund, essentially, there's 2 different campaigns. Okay, so we have a dApp creation campaign and an ecosystem campaign. And what this means is, if you can answer one of these questions, what dApps should be built to drive user adoption, or how can we encourage developers to build dApps on top of Cardano? Then you have a good idea, then submit a proposal. Each of these sections is allotted $500,000. So the proposal with the most votes will get their chunk of money, and then it keeps going down that line until the money's run out. So I think we had 11 proposals in the last fund that got funded, and we had less money in the last fund. So this is essentially what we'll be looking at today. So I picked 3 different proposals. When I look at the proposals, I look at three things, right? Impact. In other words, does it answer the question, right? What dApps should be built to drive user adoption? Essentially, does it answer that question? Second thing you want to look at is the feasibility, right? It's great to have a good idea, but is this going to be made? Are there people working on this that are going to turn this idea into a reality? And the third thing you look at is auditability. In other words, once they get their money, how can we be sure that things are happening? Are they hitting their objectives week 1, month 6, auditability? So those are the 3 things we're going to look at. So let's dig right into it with the first proposal. The first proposal is a NFT proposal here. Let me get this going. Called Inu.social, NFT social media, and they're looking for $100,000. Now, essentially, this project looks to change your content into tokens in order to compensate creators. In other words, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong thing here. In other words, what they want to do, and you can read this here, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Let's say someone sees a tweet or something like a tweet and they like it. They'll have to purchase your tokens in order to send that tweet on, essentially. Should a user decide that this is worth collecting, like the tokens, they will need to share the content and pay a buyer fee to have the content tokenized and sent to their wallet. So that's essentially what he's trying to do. There's a couple of things I think are there's a couple of things I think that have to be thought out a little better on this project. I mean, what keeps people from just sharing it anyway if it's just text? But anyway, that's the idea of this project. So let's kind of look at the three different ways we rate this project. Impacts. In other words, is it answering that question? I put that this is definitely a problem that needs to be solved, right? I mean, we had to figure out what to do with social media. Right now, as a user of social media, you don't decide what other people get to see. The social media company decides. If they don't like what you have to say, if it's not their kind of political leaning, then they're going to take it off. So this is a very big problem. This is a problem definitely that needs to be looked at for sure. Feasibility. Now, in this proposal, I think he talks about being a developer, I believe, but there's no proof. I might say proof, but there's no documentation that he can do what he says he's going to do. And one of the really important things to do when we put this proposal together is show that, look, if you get the money, you know what you're doing. So the feasibility, you don't really know if this is going to happen. This needs a little more juice on that side of it. Auditability. Also, auditability, there's really no roadmaps or milestones or definition of success here in this proposal. Essentially, he's just talking about it, why we need it, and the markets. He goes down, there's a couple links here I looked at. That's more just about NFTs and how NFT tokens work. So although this is a really big issue, I think the proposal needs a little bit more added to it. So hopefully he'll come back, if he doesn't get money this time around, hopefully he'll come back and re-engineer it a little bit. Also, when you have a proposal that doesn't have all this information about the developer and how it's going to be done, to ask for $100,000 it's a pretty big ask. You're asking the community just to give you money for an idea without really showing anything. So I think this proposal needs a little more work, but a great idea. I really like the idea of this proposal. We definitely need it. Okay, so let's go on to the next proposal here. This next proposal is an invoicing proposal. Let's take a look at it here. So, whoops, I got this all the way down. E-invoicing standard. Okay, they essentially want to use the blockchain metadata and NFTs to help with e-invoicing. This is an absolutely great idea because you can use the metadata for sure. The NFTs, I don't understand exactly how they fit in. The metadata, absolutely, for invoicing. So if you have, I don't want to get into the weeds here too much, but let's say you have a business and you have to invoice out what just came. You can essentially put the invoice on the blockchain, right, or a market to the invoice, and then it's just there. It's always there. It's there for people to see. It's trustless. In other words, it's never going to go away. So there's a lot of promise for something like this. I think this is a really, really good idea. But let's go down some of the standards here. Impact. Now, what I said here is that a problem that needs to be solved. Yes, it is. But this is more just for the kind of the business-to-business community. Does this really drive user adoption? Is this something Cardano is looking for in their first couple of dApps to get people involved? I don't know if it really drives user adoption like some other things would do. So that's a question voters are going to have to think about. Does this actually drive user adoption? As far as the feasibility of this, again, there's nothing in here. He says he's a developer. He or she says they're a senior developer, but they did not link to anything like a GitHub or anything else to show their ability. And that's really, really important, especially if you're asking for money to link and show your ability. Now, as far as their budget goes, now this is interesting, right? So they're asking for $22,500 for three things: purchase standard documents, $2,500; marketing and communications, $5,000; and then something else, POC. I don't know what POC means. And that's another thing about this proposal. I think the proposer should work on for next time if he doesn't get funded, is that he uses a lot of acronyms, right, in this proposal, and I just don't know what a lot of them are. He explained some of them, but he didn't explain what POC was, and this may be something really simple, but people who aren't in the industry, they're not going to know what POC is, right? We're not in this industry. So I would be careful using too many acronyms, just because there are, I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's other people that don't know. There's probably a bunch of people that do know, but you want to be as clear as possible when you have a proposal like this. And the last thing is auditability. Yes, he did actually put some roadmaps and stuff in here where he wants things done by phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So that looks really good. So that part of it is good. Again, I think this is a good idea, and I think this is a perfect use case for Cardano, especially because of the way their metadata is set up. I'm not sure how you integrate the tokens with this. I understand that you can tokenize things, like tokenize invoices and whatnot, and stuff like that, but I see the metadata as really being the place where you're going to hit this out of the park. So I don't know. I think hopefully he will, if he doesn't get the money this time around, we'll keep this going, because I think this is a really, really good idea. Okay, so let's move on to our last business here, our proposal. Number 3. Now this is an interesting proposal by somebody up in Canada, BC Wildfire Identification. So essentially, what this proposer would like to do is he would like to incentivize people to use his app that he already created or that he already has in Arizona or in Canada, and incentivize people via ADA to report forest fires. So this is a really interesting concept, and the fact that he already has an app out is great, because this shows that he's committed to this. He's already doing it. Is it a problem that needs to be solved? Sure. I mean, anything that's going to help people report things quicker, especially forest fires and things like that. I mean, of course it's good, but this suffers from the same thing the last one suffers from a bit, on the question of drive user adoption. Now, I don't see this driving user adoption. I mean, if there's 10 or 20 forest fires, I don't know the numbers at all, but let's say 10 or 20 are a lot for Canada, or even 100. That doesn't drive user adoption, if someone uses it 100 times. So that's the only thing. I think this might be better suited for a different fund. Let's see, feasibility. Now, I had to put unknown here again, because although he says, or does he? Yeah, he says here that he's a developer, and he does have an app for sure. I click on it real quick. We can look at it. BC Wildfire app here. I mean, I guess we can take it at his word. Take him at his at his word that he's a developer. But it's nice to see some kind of documentation, because you're asking for money. He's asked for $50,000. That's a lot of money to just say, give me $50,000 and here it is. Because speaking of that, the auditability, there really is no auditability here. It's a very short proposal, and needs a little more weight to it probably. There's not, I mean, he says what he wants it to do. The goal is to incentivize, blah, 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 customize. The short-term goal is to localize Alberta, BC. I mean, I guess there's some milestones or goals here, but not really, they're not very well pointed out, number one. And number two, when you're asking for money like this, you like to break down what you're going to use the money for. Like the previous proposal, at least it was broken down a little bit. But when you're asking for $50,000, the community is going to want to know, well, what exactly are you using this for? Or around about what you're using it for. They want to know where this money is going, and also, how are we going to know you're doing what you're doing? So that's kind of missing a little bit from this proposal. But again, this is, I think this is a good idea. I just don't think for this, maybe not for this funding round, it's not a great idea. But like I said, anything that gets more people to use Cardano, especially if you're going to save lives with this kind of thing, you'd hope that people don't need to be incentivized, though, to report forest fires. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about here, and this is a new segment that we're doing, it's called Community Talk. So what this is, as we're building this community here with Cardano and with the Catalyst, there's a lot of stuff between the community advisors that we talk about to try to make this better. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what we talk about in Telegram to kind of let the larger community know what's going on. So right now we're in a time where we're reviewing. So community advisors, let me step back once. When you see a 1 to 5 star rating on a proposal when you're voting, those ratings are given by community advisors, right? So we go in, we have a week to go in there and look at the proposal and rank the proposal in these 3 sections I talked about. And then they take all the good proposals or good rankings, and that's where you come up with the star rating. So what we're doing now is we're doing a rank the rankers, essentially. So we had a week where we went in there and ranked these proposals, and now we're looking at them again. We're getting community advisors that have been around for a long time to go back in and make sure people aren't just making things up, or they're not saying one thing and ranking another way, because you do get incentivized to do this. So the community advisors get now it's not a lot, but we get a little bit of ADA to do this. So you'd be surprised. I think there were over 1,000 people that signed up to be community advisors, and it only turned out 80 or so actually did it the correct way. So this past week community advisors are going in and kind of looking at other community advisors. So you understand that could, there's a lot going on with that. And some of the things that we're finding, number one is this is a good idea, but we need to figure out how to do it better in the future. We're trying to figure out what to do with reviews that just say stuff like well written, rank 4 or 5 well written, reviews that don't really dig into the proposals and give just good information. Another thing that I'm a little worried about, should we be saying that our proposals should get funded or not get funded? I don't think as community advisors we should ever say this proposal shouldn't get funded or this should get funded. I'll never say something shouldn't get funded. I will, because that's up to the voters. Like I'll say maybe it's not for this fund, maybe they should come back, but I'll never straight out and say, look, this should not get funded. I just don't think that's our responsibility. I think that's responsibility of the voters. As far as things that should get funded, I guess I do say I hope this gets funded, because there are projects I like that I do hope get funded. But I don't think we should be stepping over that line where it goes to saying something shouldn't get funded. And that's just my personal view, but that's something we're talking about. And that's pretty much what we're trying to figure out here, because this just happened today. We're trying to figure out how are we going to do this, and is there a better way to do this? So we're working through that now. And as we figure that out, I will let you guys know. Like I said, this is going to be an ongoing segment with kind of what the community is talking about. So with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. So there's nothing super exciting here. I'm just going to kind of end it with well wishes, and I will see you tomorrow with 3 more episodes. Have a great night. Bye-bye.